Hello and welcome to Warp Zone, a podcast on sci-fi, philosophy, religion, politics, gaming and anything else taboo. I am Ben Banasik. Woo! Taboo! Woo.
I'm Tara Smith. Hello everybody.
Hi. It's good to join you, Tara, here in the hottest room in the world.
It is very hot in here, and we've sort of been having a few audio, trying to get the sound a bit better, and hopefully it comes across better. We're going to have to see. It also is filming us, but you're not going to get that footage, so
Yeah.
you don't want to see that footage.
I don't know where it's filming. It's probably filming the top of our heads because we're ducked down away from the camera. But we're in Think Space at Sydney University.
Yes, and I think we're going to start off with a bit of feedback from what you guys sort of brought us from last week.
Feedback is good. We like feedback.
We do. Thanks everybody for listening, and I think we had quite a few people listening, more than I expected. I thought it'd just be Tom and like my mum, but there was a few more people. And that's Tom, my partner, not the cat.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Thomas O'Malley. So he hasn't listened to it yet?
No, not yet. I tried, he just fell asleep. So.
Did you listen to it?
No.
No, I didn't listen to it either.
I already lived it. I didn't need to do it a second time.
Yeah, I know, but some people listen to it. Okay, so feedback. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I will. So I had some feedback from my friends on Facebook. I don't have that many, but I have a couple.
Friends or feedback?
Either. No. So my friend Taylor gave us some info about why Victoria coffee is so bad. She said that they try and go for a consistent flavour rather than necessary quality, so that no matter how shit the barista is, the coffee's still going to be the same.
So it's consistently shit.
Exactly, yeah. So that was very informative. My friend Craig sent me a little link about some info about John Woolley, who our first building we mentioned, the first podcast was named after, who was he was a headmaster at Sydney University in 1852, and he sort of was pretty cool because he sort of promoted more of a secular study, which didn't have compulsory kind of religious elements to it, and he also promoted the arts. That was kind of cool. Craig also said that he wanted us to talk a bit about L. Ron Hubbard, which definitely could be something we do later because it's an interest of mine as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's me. And then you have some people on Twitter, right, Ben?
I have, sort of, no. So I have feedback. There's too many caveats. Anyway, Discord, chat, other things. A proper first review. We actually have our first review on Facebook, which is from John Pansini. And he said, excellent, objective and subjective discussion of inconsequential and consequential topics. Well worth your listening hour. So thank you, John. I'm glad
thanks,
you
John.
enjoyed it. And he is from Game the System podcast. So he's one of the people and a friend of ours. And then Peter Kingling left some feedback. And Peter King, he is a former employee of mine, and the joke is that he travels a lot, because he does travel a lot, and he talks about his travel a lot. And so he told everyone that it is a good podcast on my Facebook because he travels. So he manages to slip it in there all the time.
He travels, does he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He's well-travelled.
Yeah, he is
a well-travelled man.
Yeah. And he also said to me that he wants to bring me a shipment of cauliflower, which means
your favourite.
he's also banned from the store. So apologies for that.
As are cauliflowers.
As a cauliflower, yeah, I don't want any cauliflowers there. It's terrible. It's awful. But no, there's been lots of like little comments from people that we know as well. Carol, our supervisor, said she's proud of us, which is nice.
That is nice. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah. So there's lots of people that have actually said very nice, warm things. Tom gave me feedback.
Oh yeah, he wanted to tell us about the building where 89 used to be Susie Spoon's, which was a vegetarian butcher, which was pretty cool. And they still sell their products, but they don't have a building for it. I think they just sell it at certain like IGAs and stuff like that. They do vegetarian sausages and all that sort of stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yeah. So he left that feedback with Tara and then told Tara to tell me, and that feedback didn't come through. And then he made a complaint about Tara to me. So that's
Tom, my partner, not
the partner. Yes. So that's our first complaint as well.
I also, my Alexander, my work colleague, said my voice sounds a lot deeper on the podcast than it does in real life. So that was a nice ego booster.
Is that good?
I don't think so. But she said she liked it. So
hang on, is that bad in real life or is that bad?
I don't know. I've got all these different questions now about how. So maybe I need to talk a lot higher so I sound more feminine and less masculine. No, don't worry about it. Okay.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I watched a scary film last night called Hereditary. It was scary because there's another one coming out called Midsummer, which is like a cult set in a festival, which sounds kind of cool. So I wanted to watch Hereditary, which is on Netflix, and it was really scary. Yeah. Really? I get scared really easily, but I kind of like to be scared. So it was kind of cool. I liked there were lots of miniatures. So the main character is like the mom. She makes miniatures, so like miniature houses. And a lot of those shots, you don't know sometimes whether you're looking at a detailed miniature or the actual house.
Oh, that's
I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Definitely worth watching if you like horror films. But then towards the end, it has like a twist. And to my credit, I muted it because I got too scared. So I watched the last 20 minutes on mute.
Really?
Yeah, with subtitles. Because it's always the sounds that are so scary, right? So I watched on that. And then there was a lot of scenes where there's like people like on the walls, like in the corners of the room, kind of like, have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
No.
You haven't seen that?
No.
Oh, what's his name? Waika Tahiti. Oh, I've totally ruined that. Anyway, he's New Zealand director who does heaps of Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People, all those. Waika Tahiti.
I think so. I'm not good at movies. Is not my expertise area. It's not
anyway, he does this film called What We Do in the Shadows, which is like a mock vampire movie, and like they're always like jumping to the walls and fighting, like hissing like cats. Anyway, this movie had some scenes where people were on the walls, and I couldn't stop thinking about that. So it was kind of comical. Plus, it was muted, so the last 15 minutes kind of lost me. But I still recommend it. Other than that, I've been watching Stranger Things. No spoilers.
Yes.
Yep. So I think I've got 3 episodes to go. I've really enjoyed it. I like the kind of pro. I don't think it's a spoil, like the pro-feminist kind of aspects of it. You think that's a spoiler?
Nah.
That's so vague.
Yeah.
All right, sorry for anyone if it's a spoiler. I'm going to leave it at that.
No, it's good. It's good. There is some good character development. I'm 1 episode behind you, so next week we should be caught up.
But we still won't give any spoilers for you slowpokes out there.
Yeah. I think it's almost unavoidable nowadays because it's so much part of the collective consciousness. You know, a show like that being released, particularly all at once. It's a really interesting decision for Netflix to release
them all at once. Normally they stagger it, right? I've also been watching Handmaid's Tale. I caught up the new season of that, and then what else have I been watching? That's about it. I went on I saw you on the weekend. Came over, saw the cats.
Yes, you visited them.
Saw Zaya.
Yeah.
Played some games. It's good. What about you?
It was good.
It's pretty much all I've been doing.
So aside from all that, I've been watching Games Done Quick, the summer. So it's a speedrunning festival thing for charity. They managed to raise 3 million.
Wait, speedrunner, you don't mean actual running, do you?
No, games.
You might need to explain to people what a speedrunner is.
Okay, so speedrunning is getting through a game as fast as possible, and that includes using exploits and fastest versions.
Yeah, if you see it looks like they're cheating.
Yeah, they break through walls and stuff. Like Zelda is a really famous example. One of the versions on the Game Boy Advance can be finished within like 90 seconds.
Wow.
So you just break through the first wall and then you glitch all the way through, and then final boss, and then the credits start rolling. So it's an interesting thing to do. So Games Done Quick is a group of people that get together and they meet a couple of times through the year, and they do it for charity basis. So last year's Summer Games Done Quick did almost $2 million US for Medicine Sans Frontières.
Oh, nice.
This year they did $3 million US.
Wow, that's
so it's
huge.
A huge thing.
Yeah.
Really, really good. It's a blip for charity basis in comparison to government expenditure and such, but I think personal giving in that regard is actually really good to see. It's good to see something positive coming, from a gaming community and owned by the gaming community in this way. So yeah, I've been watching some of the replays of that because that ended just a week ago. Aside from that, on TV, I've been watching, Stranger Things, and I've been playing some games. So I've been playing Judgment, which is by the same studio that made the Yakuza games, and you play a detective. But the funniest thing about it, and why this relates to this podcast, is that in the scenes where you're like hunting for things, so you sort of walk around in a closed space and you like zoom in on things, and you can hear the guy go, oh, interesting. There's these sort of things. There's a cat in every scene, like throughout the entire game.
really?
There's always a cat hiding. And he says funny things like, when he's looking for a pigeon, oh, that's not a pigeon, that's a cat. Or, oh, it's a cat hiding in a box there. And and you always hear like a little meows. And then,
that's cute.
so you got to look for cats, which is nice. So it's basically a cat finding adventure.
Like Neko Atsume or something.
Yeah.
That's the game Tom plays where there's lots of cats and you pick the
Neckos,
cats. Have you ever played it?
Yeah.
You take the photos.
Yeah, I used to have a Windows 95 or 3.11. You could have like different cursors on your computer. You used to be able to change your mouse pointer.
Yeah.
So my favorite one was the Neko one, where you'd like have like this cat chasing after your pointer all the time.
Oh, that's so funny.
And when
they were so annoying. How long did you keep it for? Like a day?
Oh, it was ages.
Really?
Neko I loved. Yeah, it was like my little
funny.
cat, and you could like change the color of it and stuff.
That seems so early 2000s.
Yeah, the internet and computers have changed since then. I've been playing a little bit of Tetris, practicing.
I've been playing Tetris Effect. I should be playing
you should
the
be
other
playing
Tetris.
the original.
I know.
Tetris Effect is good though, yeah.
It is really fun, yeah. I'm a lot better at Tom too, so that makes it extra enjoyable.
Yeah, that's good. And last night, after a long time, I got a delivery in the mail yesterday, which is my certificate from Twin Galaxies for my world record.
Woo!
Yeah, they got the score wrong on it, but that's okay.
Did they put it up or down?
Down.
Oh, no.
But they say that first place. So it's just a misprint on the certificate, which hopefully they can print another one, but their certificate program has been...
Are you going to call them and be like, excuse me?
I sent an email. It was a really nice message.
Dear Twin Galaxies.
My score is wrong, but that's okay. I want to take my certificate up to Queensland actually and get...
people to sign it?
Yeah, Walter Day. So he was the guy that owned Twin Galaxies Arcade originally. So hopefully he can sign it, and I want him actually to correct my score.
Oh,
so I'm going to ask him to do, which is Mark Bell's idea actually.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So I think that's a great idea. So that arrived in the mail, and then I thought that I haven't played Columns for a while. To get that score, as background of anyone who doesn't know, I had to play a version of Columns non-stop without any breaks, which is really fast speed actually, for 7 hours. So it was no toilet, no...
Yeah, I tuned in. And if you do want to go check it out, it's pretty funny because one of the kittens, is it Peanut?
Peanut,
comes and sits on his lap and like meows and purrs like the whole time. So it's actually quite funny. And he keeps wanting pats, but Ben can't because he has to keep playing.
Yeah, so. I just I'm trying to pat him like using my control in the back of my hand to try and pat him.
So he's playing all these cons and he hears meow, meow.
And then he gets really excited. I'm like, get off! So that was fun. And that's been a while. So, I played Columns last night and I decided I don't like certain versions of the game, which I knew before, but then it's reinforced that I dislike it. That's what I've been playing and watching. What have you been reading?
I'm still reading the book I was reading last week, the Doc Smith book, and I'm about halfway through that, but I've started another book.
I was wondering that because this morning when we got a coffee, you had another book and you got through a lot of that book, which means you carry... So do you read more than one book at once?
Only if I don't love the first book.
So you don't like the first?
Yeah, so I'm reading Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes, which I think is a Macbeth quote that the witches say. And it's sort of like a young boy coming of age kind of book set with like a spooky setup of a fate. And it's kind of good. It's very flowery. I read an excerpt to Ben before, and it's just like each line is kind of a metaphor or simile. But I really like Fahrenheit 451, so I'm giving this one a go. And then I also bought a book by I'm going to really butcher the pronunciation of this one. Yevgeny Zamyatin, called We. It's quite a classic sci-fi, so I've got that to read as well. But I'm reading that, and what else am I reading?
The Bradbury book is really funny, like the very short sentences.
Yeah.
The gentle smiling ones own their good secret. Oh, the strange wonderful clocks women are. They nest in time. And that's 3 separate sentences.
Yeah,
That's
it's very poetic.
Unnecessary sentences.
Yeah. But I quite like it. That's sort of what I've been reading. What about you? What have you been reading?
I've been reading some Freud and some Jung.
Yeah, nice. Going
and
back
some
to
William
the classics.
James. Yeah, so that's for the Newcastle course, which I'm lecturing semester 2. And the elements I'm reading as part of that have to do with the psyche and the subconscious, and then mixing that with what William James says is religious experience. So it's coinciding actually with my thesis, which is always good to teach something that's in relation to your actual thesis. So I do use Jung and William James, definitely, in my PhD. So, yeah, I'm using that opportunity, actually, to read further with that. But, yeah, it's really interesting how I've engaging with these three thinkers all at once. Because they do talk amongst each other. But if, yeah.
I just wanted to check with Ben that we're definitely recording.
The button's red.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I hope so.
That would be really awkward. Sorry, keep going.
That would be awkward. I've also been reading a little bit on the Spanish Inquisition for a bit of RA stuff that I'm doing, research assistant stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't use acronyms. For Carol, and I keep thinking of the Monty Python skit, that's Spanish Inquisition. I know it's broader than that, but that's what I just.
Well, that could be a new lens of looking at it, looking through the Monty Python.
Yeah. I don't know. She's probably annoyed with me to just keep putting no one mentions or no one expects the Spanish Inquisition in every single one of my subject headings to emails to. Anyway, I shouldn't joke about that stuff, or maybe I should. I don't know. And then aside from that, we've been reading Shtetl Days.
Yay! So I put the link up on because we've got a Facebook page now. So I put the links of the story and also the game that we're going to talk about a bit later. So we're going to try and find short stories that people can access for free, so it's easier. So I wrote down some notes about.
I also have notes.
Yeah, but I wrote some notes about the actual writer. So Shtetl Days is a short story written by Harry Turtledove, and Harry Turtledove is a guy who I met at the Nebula conference in a panel on Jewish science fiction, and he recommended this story. So he was born in 1949. He lives in LA. He's Romanian Jewish, so I think it's where his grandparents are from, and. This is funny. So he uses the pseudonym, I think it's Eric G. Iverson, because his editor didn't believe anyone would believe his name's Harry Turtledove. So some of his earlier work's written with a pseudonym, but now he goes by Harry Turtledove. And yeah, do you want to start with what you thought about?
Well, some of the background stuff. So I think we can spoil this because we need to actually spoil it to engage with it properly. All right, well, initially I thought, do you want to give an overview of the story, or do you want...
So basically it starts off pretty, it looks like it's a period piece set in a shtetl around, I don't know what years you'd call that. It was sort of...
It's like the preemption to when the Holocaust was properly formalized with the final solution. So, but
they weren't. I got the impression that because I think there's a scene where a SS soldier comes in and they say, that it was historically inaccurate because that hadn't happened yet. So it's before any of that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. So it's prior to 1943.
Yeah.
So it's early days, and it's set in so. He's misspelt some of the words, I think purposefully, but so it's a W, but it's
Is this the name of the village?
Yeah, so it's Polish, so it's Wawolnice.
How do you spell it? W-A-W-O-L-N-I-C-E. Oh yeah, I was saying Wawolnice.
So it's Wawolnice. Wawolnice is actually Wawolnica, which is in eastern Poland. And that is 2.5 hours away from where my grandfather was born.
Really? That's kind of cool.
So eastern Poland.
Oh yeah, so sorry, we'll go back to the description. So basically it starts off and you think it's set in this period, looking at Jewish life and in a Polish settlement, is that right?
Yeah, Polish.
Yeah.
So the terminology they keep using in the story, there is Yiddish.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of that.
It's actually seeping in. There are some German words, but it's lots of Yiddish. It opens with 2 Yiddish words, and it's not actually explained at all.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool, because it's pretty rare to see words like that without a direct translation. It's like he just assumed that everyone would know what they were, which I think was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it starts off, you think it's in a shtetl, and then sort of in the next section you realise that it's actually what?
Oh, it's just Tom at the door.
Oh. So my partner's just doing lewd things at the door. Yeah. So anyway.
That's all right.
So basically, then you realize it's actually set in the future in a kind of alternate history where Nazi Germany has sort of taken over the world, basically, right? They won the war, they're in charge, and they're doing a reenactment of what they imagine a Jewish shtetl would look like as a period piece.
But you don't have to discover that until so the main character is Jacob or Jacob. So Jacob, he and his wife, after a day, they go back to their home and they open a cupboard and walk downstairs and then take off their clothes. So that reveal, I think, is really interesting because it's not explained right up until I printed it. So we've got like 33 pages. And I'm flicking through. Yeah, it's like page 4 or 5. So, no. So page 7 of 33. Mm-hmm. So Bertha, which is the wife, and Jacob go through a door, and you think that that's all it is, and then it becomes all realised that it's futuristic. They're putting on a show.
Yeah, and it's a theatre door, so you think that they're just going. You get confused, and then you realise that basically it's a big stage that's been set up to look exactly, really authentically like a village, and that they're all actors.
Yeah.
And there's Polish actors and there's actors portraying, so they're German, like Reich individuals, right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's the German police, but the SS are not present in the village. So it's trying to represent what it was actually like. In the very early days, and this is when the brown shirts would have still been around for the German Reich, and you have policing done by the Polish authority, and the Jewish settlement is left to itself. So Jacob is engages with some discourse with a rabbi, so there is an actor of a rabbi, and the acting is to the point where Jacob is expected to actually debate elements of Torah and actually study the Torah. It's revealed later in the story that there are no Jews left around the world. That they've just been completely wiped out.
Yeah, and there's also the impression that they're kind of like, so they're acting out of, because it was like a well-paid job, they get paid really well, there's not many other great acting roles, so that people are drawn to it for these sort of altruistic reasons. They get paid, and it's a village where tourists come in, and you're meant to keep acting, which I thought was kind of funny, like you're meant to keep acting even while people were watching you, Japanese tourists or whatever, or no, maybe not Japanese, but whatever, tourists taking photos of you while you're acting, but you're meant to just ignore them and continue on. And it's so realistic that they even have, they call it pogroms, where they take in sort of prisoners of whatever, and they actually kill them and they beat them to death, which is really, it was really quite a horrible scene.
Yeah. So it is quite amazing, and they refer to things as if the war has been different as well. So they call it the War of Retribution. Yeah, and it's the signage of advertising the theme park to motorists, that as Jacob and his wife are driving away, it's advertising that the Jews are going to get what's coming to them, and this whole element. Yeah,
it's almost like fetishizing it, and I think even the sign had like really over-characterized features of like really racist features of like a Jewish person, and I think that it was like the idea being like, look at what we could have, like if we'd left it, look how bad it could have got if Jewish people had continued living, because they're like so bad, and the actual shtetl they've created is so realistic that when the pogrom happens and they're repairing it, they're actually repairing it with old glass to make the shop look particularly old, which was kind of interesting. So they're actually trying to create a very accurate representation, which I thought was really interesting. And I read through the comments on the actual site, and someone had said like, oh, I didn't think this was very believable, because they didn't believe that if Nazis would recreate such an accurate depiction of Jewish life. And then other people said that, well, actually the records that they kept on Jewish people were just so detailed that they probably could have created something so realistic. I don't know.
What happens So that's a good background. So what is interesting as part of this, though, you have Jacob during the encampment, so as the actor, and then Jacob outside. And he's starting to use elements of the Yiddish language and some of the prayers. So where he refers to different elements, so there's really common Jewish prayers actually just throughout this story. So I've got a question. So Turtledove, he is Jewish?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so that's... Yeah, it's clear that that's what he's actually engaged with. They make a choice. So him and his wife actually say prayers over meals and then choose not to eat during certain days as well. And they're becoming Jewish.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
It's that they're feeling more relatability and more sense of connection and community through their acting group and their because it's like pretty like full on. I think they do it every day, and they barely have weekends. And so as they're kind of acting out this old Jewish life, they start to take it back home with them. But they have to be careful because there's like complete surveillance. Basically, they describe a scene where they're at home and I think they're fasting. I'm not sure what holiday it is, but they're turning the ovens on and off and opening up the shelves as if they were cooking, so that if anyone was listening, it would look like they're still eating because they don't want anybody to know that they're actually fasting or celebrating these sort of Jewish holidays, which I thought was quite an interesting scene. And it's sort of this idea of how that kind of those themes and that Jewish sense of community has sort of, I guess, infected them unintentionally into their everyday, even though they're Nazi, German, Aryan, white, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, not what you'd expect sort of thing. So.
Yeah. And they're questioned by an SS officer actually inside the acting camp. And Jacob is shaken from this because, you don't usually have the SS there, but he's trained to always act in that element and always respond first with Yiddish, and he's got these instructions, so he engages with the SS officer, and the SS officer gets angered by why are you talking like this, get rid of that, and then he starts talking in the German. It's funny how he says next year in Jerusalem at a part as well, so it's a prayer which is given at the end of the Sabbath services that you say next year in Jerusalem. Alevi Omayen as well. So there is different prayers which are offered and engagements which are actually said all the time. It's almost like there's this manifestation of the faith Turtledove is trying to paint, that if Judaism did disappear, that the faith would actually re-manifest itself, which is a really interesting concept.
Definitely. And also a way of like revolution and using it as a way to kind of wake everybody up. And I think that's the ending that you get, is that they're trying to spread almost secret Judaism through the acting and through meeting people and sort of spread it out, even though it might be futile. Like I got that impression of resilience because they have this big picnic out in the park and it's like a really like joyous event. And I think like a German drives past in the car and says, "Why have you all got beards?" Because they all grow their beards really long. And he says, "Oh, we're the Beard Appreciation Society," because and then they keep right. But they in that sort of place, you can tell that they've just got a lot of joy with it. And I thought it was a really nice story.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's almost a hopeful... there's a lot of hope painted through this story. Even though it's a dystopian world and dystopian engagement, it's an imagining a world which the Hitler won, and he's referred to as the first Führer, so it's a continuation of the Reich. And the Greater German Reich would have won, and then Judaism is wiped off the map. What then would have taken place? And even though it is in some sort of encampments and acting facade, there is a continuation of the element of the faith. But yeah, it was fascinating. I very much enjoyed it.
And the other thing was that I think towards the end, Jacob watches a couple of films and it kind of wakes him up to sort of embracing more of his sort of like the Jewish faith. And in one of the movies he watches Frankenstein, and there's this sort of metaphor towards the end that it's like a mismatch of creations. They've pulled all this stuff together, and it's having a life on its own. And that was the sort of final metaphor, is that the Jewish faith had become like this kind of monster that was breathing and living, and no one could do anything to stop it. It was like, it's going to come through. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. It's funny as a different. I haven't read this type of post-Holocaust literature before.
Yeah.
Like I've read lots of Holocaust literature, being interested in it. You know, and it's in a different world a long time ago. This would probably be questioned as to why it's being written in this way and whether it's serious or not.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to...
You think it would be problematic?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it is problematic, and I think it does stretch the imagination, which is a good thing. But, you know, Mouse by Arch Spiegelman, which is a graphic novel, and the Jews are portrayed as mice and the Nazis as cats. That was questioned.
Yeah.
And then you have Elie Wiesel's Night. It was questioned as well, even though it's classic, and he won Nobel Peace Prize. You know, so Elie Wiesel is a wonderful writer in that regard. But lots of people thought that these were pushing the boundaries, and I think this also pushes the boundaries.
Yeah, you could be misunderstood. People would be like, "Oh, are you trying to say that maybe we should be in like what the Nazis, or promoting some sort of Nazi?"
Yeah, or accepting that, and I don't think it is. I think it is useful and it's purposeful, and it's thought provoking. Which the story should be.
Definitely. And I think that's what alternate histories are so good at. It's painting a different way things could have gone, and for us to realise, like, not just a warning, but as a different way of looking at things as well.
Yeah.
So I dedefinitely recommend it. Let's give it. Should we give it out of 10?
Out of 10 what? Out
like
of 10...
what's the Jewish coin? Jewish shekel?
Shekels.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 shekels.
What do you want to start?
So to critique it, I felt like the latter part of the story, so after the reveal happens, that's good. After the SS officer comes and questions, that's really good, and it has a lot of force. I think that the last few pages, actually, it really didn't have an end. Well, I know short stories aren't meant to have a definitive end, but there didn't seem much purpose to that final part of it, which is why the basis of, I'd be questioning. There's also, I don't know, there's a couple of remarks there which, someone who's studied Nietzsche, there's some questionable stuff that actually is just used, but it's okay. It is what it is. So I think maybe 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Yep.
I don't know.
I liked it. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was a sweet story. Like I liked the positive elements. I'm kind of into sort of, the good coming out of the bad, and I think that's a really nice sort of image. So I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
8
shekels.
Okay.
I liked all the Yiddish. Like, how refreshing to read a short story.
Yeah.
And this is freely available. Anyone can read it, and just have phrases with no explanation in Yiddish. Like, why the hell not? Like, I thought that was really cool. So
the first, to give you, maybe we should give you an example. So this is the first line. Jacob Shafir opened the door and walked outside to go to work. Before he could shut it again, his wife called after him, Aleve, it should be a good day. We really need the gelt. And that's no explanation that Aleve actually means wish. Gelt means, money. Just no explanation at all. And it is really, really nice, actually, to see that. It's very important there. But
So definitely, guys, check it out if you want it. We recommend it. And I think we're going to talk next about a game.
Are we? What game?
We're going to be talking about Papers, Please.
Papers, Please.
And here's the intro music.
Yes. So, Papers, Please.
Yeah, this was a pretty cool game, and I think you should do an intro before we start chatting about it.
Yeah, sure. So it's designed by Lucas Pope in 2013. It's won a lot of awards. So lots of Best Game of the Years in 2013, some prizes in 2014 as well. He's got an interesting sort of backstory, Lucas Pope. So he worked on a number of games in the past, and he was chiefly employed by Naughty Dog Games, which did the Uncharted games. And he took a lot of his inspiration from Argo and the Bourne trilogy, or quintuply, or how many Bourne
I don't know, there's a lot of them, aren't there?
There's a lot, yeah, there's a real lot of Bourne. Anyway, so there's lots of inspirations that way. He also did a follow-on, which is not a sequel, but a follow-on game, which is Return of the Obra Dinn in 2018. That's actually a really interesting game as well for different reasons. You can change, so it's a monochromatic game, which means it's only in a singular color basis, and you can then select what monochromatic monitor from the late 80s you want to actually choose. So you can have it like Mac based or IBM based, and it's like green or blue. So it's pretty cool. As much as everyone loved the game, overall for Papers, Please, there is some criticism, and it came from Australia actually.
Oh really?
Yeah. So ABC's.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
We have such nice borders for people to enter.
Me too. Yeah. No, I don't think that's the reason. So Hex, or Steph Bendixson from Good Game, she found it very repetitive, which I can understand. However, that was not the general consensus.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah, that is the point. Yeah, so that's what it is. So maybe just give a brief background of it. So you are a guard. And the game starts off saying, "Congratulations! You've been chosen, and
you've won the lottery.
You won the lottery
and
to
allocated
work
to Zone 8 or something like that."
Yeah, and then you have to actually take care of a crossing, and that crossing is for the state of Astoshka.
Astoshka.
So glory to Astoshka.
Yes.
And you're there at this border crossing, and basically you're allowing people to come through. You need to check certain elements of the passports, and then after there's passports, then there's entry tickets, and then there's work permit cards. And
you have to do checks, body checks, body searches, and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. You also have to check, which I did not know until the weekend, because I don't read manuals or things, I don't really pay attention to a lot of games, which is weird for someone who likes, Japanese role-playing games, which generally need a lot of text. I didn't read the background of this, but you need to check the city.
The issuing city in the rulebook. So basically the benchmark keeps changing. So each level, basically, it gets harder. And that's what I first noticed about this game is it was really hard. So I think the first time I played it, I only got to level 4 before all my family died. So pretty much it just...
Or day 4.
Day 4, sorry, yeah. So you get certain days, and all of the requirements, you need a lot to remember. You're running out of time, you're running out of money, your family's getting sick, so there's a lot of pressure. And I felt myself getting really stressed by it. So then when I played it a second time, I put there's a handicap you can put on where they give you an extra $20 or 20, whatever, I don't know what the currency is. Does it say?
It's a dollar symbol, so it'd be...
I don't know. But an extra money so that I didn't die so quickly. And then I got, I think, to level 13 or something.
Yeah.
But it's a cool game. I like it.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
Your partner, Tom, is very good at it.
Yeah, because he's a bit of a, I don't know how to say it, but...
What is he?
He can be he doesn't have much empathy, so he found it really easy, because I asked him, I was like, because there's situations where people come through and they have all these sorts of things going on, and you have the ability to let them in, but then be fined yourself. So, people come in and say that they're visiting their sick relative, or they'll get through and they say, can you also look out for my husband or my wife who's coming later?
Yeah, and that's the first example.
And you know that you should, or you could let them in, but often their passport's not quite right, and so you have to make the ethical decision. Do you say no, or do you say yes and then cop the fine yourself? And it's really difficult. I asked him, did you ever do like any, like, did you crumble at all? He's like, no, not once. So
it's funny how there is this pressure to constantly act in it as well. So there's the clock that's down the bottom left-hand corner. So you can be thorough and, you know, look at the photo and then look at all of these elements, and then you might miss the issuing date or something.
Or the
like
gender, that would get me all the time.
Gender, so there's that. And then, so there's all of these other elements to it, and you're constantly under this pressure to act in this position and actually fulfill the role which you are taking. Yeah,
because you get money for everyone that you process, but I think after 5 o'clock or after 6 o'clock, you don't get any money after that. So there's just, I felt like a lot of anxiety to get people through quickly, and that's when you make mistakes. So I think you get 2 mistakes, and then the third warning on that day, you then cop the fine.
And then as the fines happen, you don't have enough money for food or for heating or for rent. And then bad things happen.
Yeah, so that's where the other ethical dilemma comes in. So there's the first one where you decide whether you're going to let people through, but then there's how you allocate your funds towards your family. So you have a mother-in-law, a son, a wife.
And a child.
A son?
Son.
Yeah. And then is there someone else? Anyway, you have some extended family, and you get to toggle where you're going to pay an extra $10 for heating or for medicine if they get sick, and you have to make those allocation of those funds. And it's so I guess the aim is to try and see, like, do you sacrifice your mother-in-law for your son and all these sorts of things, right?
Yeah. So it's hard, and there's a lot of different endings. So I went through and tried to play it as much as I could, and I'm not very good at the game, which I think that means that's a good thing. I was trying to be ethical in that
Was that why you just kept stuffing up the rule book aspect?
I also stuffed up the rule book significantly, it was that as well. But I tried to... it's a funny thing with Skyrim, okay? So we've both played this. We haven't spoken about what type of characters we like to fulfill. So generally, I will play... the person who does the right thing in games, based on some sort of morality choices. So
you mean more on like the game's rules, or more like kind of being a good person kind of morality?
No, trying to be a good person. Yeah. So I won't steal generally. I'm not very good at sneaking around.
Even like Assassin's Creed?
No, that's why I don't. Yeah,
you don't like it?
No, Assassin's Creed is not a great thing. This is why Judgment is actually quite hard for me, because I have to sneak around, but he's morally doing the right thing. He's trying to find out who has actually murdered these people. And so that level of sneaking then I'm okay with. But then the other aspects of Assassin's Creed I'm not very good at. I just barrel in there and I'm like, okay, come at me, bro. You know, this is the type of morality.
Really, Tom just loves sneaking. Like, he'll just wait and like assassinate people. I get really frustrated because he'll try and kill civilians all the time, like rather than progressing, or like dogs.
Really?
Yes, and chickens and goats.
No, I don't do that. So I have done the kick chicken thing on Fable and on Legend of Zelda just to get like experience points and stuff and doing certain things.
I think I play by the rules of the game. I'm always trying to do what I think the game wants me to do. I find it really hard to think anything outside of that. So I think in Assassin's Creed, the new one, what's it called? Odyssey, yeah. There's that dilemma early on where with the plague victims or something, you could decide, do you kill them all and stop the plague spreading, or do you let them live?
See, now I never even got to this point. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. Yeah, so you...
I thought the right thing to do, and that the game was kind of implying, was to kill them. But then later, I think they come back to me and they're like, or someone, and it's like, you shouldn't. Why don't you let these people live? And I'm like, oh, I thought that's what I would. But I don't make any decisions what I think outside of the realm of the game, if that makes sense.
But you're given this blank slate with these games as to whether to.
I find it hard to believe. I always think that there's a motive hidden somewhere. I don't know.
And this is the element of this game has 20 different endings, and they're on a completely different scale. So, I would class them as acting nobly, as towards the latter end, or the multiple choices, as acting immorally. But the interesting thing is here, in this game, there is another faction, which I don't know. Did you get up to?
All I know is the kind of weird cult that sends you like coded messages with the symbols.
Yeah, Ezek.
Yeah, and then you could
EZIC,
decide to
yeah.
let them in later, but I didn't get super far with it.
Okay, so EZIC is a autonomous collective that is seeking to set up new Aztovska.
Yeah.
So new Aztovska is the promise of a great and more equal living land.
Is that what you're talking about? Is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what actually takes place in the game later on with some of the endings.
Yeah, I said I'd let them through and then forgot who it was, and then they didn't get through. So I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I tried.
But did you think that that's what the game was after, what you were doing, or why did you let them through then?
I don't know. I thought it's like the risk and reward thing, right? I thought that if I got a couple of people through and I didn't have any fines yet, I could cop the extra $5 or $10 fine. I was kind of like weighing up the pros and cons. But I liked the idea of seeing what happened, but I never quite got that far.
Yeah. So all of this is basically yes/no scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, it's either this is going to happen or this is not going to happen. And you know these branched off choices. So it is a very simplistic game in that regard.
Yeah.
But there is ways to game it so that it ends in that certain way.
Yeah. Were there any times where you definitely purposely let someone in and you knew you'd cop the fine?
Yeah.
Like what example?
On day one, when the guy said, oh, please be kind to my wife.
You let her in?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll let her in. And then my family died. So I got... my first ending was ending number 1, which is delinquency. When you run out of money.
Oh, right. You lost the rent because you couldn't pay your rent.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So then the state does not allow delinquency. So then you are kicked out. You're sent to jail until you can pay off the debt.
Yeah.
And then that's what happens.
What are some of the other endings?
Death of the family.
Yeah, I had that.
Yeah, I had that too. And then if you let too many people through that are not good, or as the state sees it, there's association with suspicious groups.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many bribes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I started to get bribes. On the second round when I was playing with the handicap, I started to get some bribes.
Yeah, so now with that bribes, if you have too many and then you have too much income, the state actually looks at your money and then assesses all of your previous decisions.
Yeah, and you have the choice to burn it as well when you get it. So you might get given like $1,000 by a mysterious person. I mean, you have the choice to burn it straight away or risk being discovered later.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far. There's murder of an innocent or attacking of an innocent. So if you have to like strip search people later on, and then you have to
there's like a nudity.
them.
You can toggle it on and off too.
Yeah.
The settings. Like it's too much like the pixelated nude people.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're doing the body search, and they can have concealed weapons.
Yeah.
And you can detain them. And you also there's another officer that asks you, that almost gives you a bribe if you detain a certain amount of people. He'll give you money as well.
Yeah. So that element that can lead to people getting injured or murdered.
Yeah.
And then this is the interesting one. So if you murder an innocent person, you get the death penalty. If you attack an innocent person, you will go to forced labour. So it's seen as not as bad attacking as it is to murder.
That
which
makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah? Okay. If you murder an official, it's death penalty. If you attack an official, it is also death penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I think, where authoritarian states come into play. And this element of, the constant state drive to make you do things that you're not wanting to do.
And I guess that's the whole point, right? Is sort of like saying that people in difficult situations, it's because you try and do the right thing, but the job makes you make sort of decisions that you think are unethical because you're also thinking about your family at home, right? And so it's sort of like, to me, the moral is sort of saying that like good people can do really shitty things if they're pressured enough, right?
Yeah, I think so.
To a degree.
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot of grey there as well.
Yeah.
So, whether it is a shitty thing or whether you are a good person is two extremes. It's this grey area that's in between as you're making these yes/no decisions and going along the path. So, continuing with the other endings, you murder an innocent, you are given the death penalty, but then a note is given to you saying that the target has been eliminated. So that's a good thing.
Oh, so you've like assassinated someone.
Yeah. And then your family is taken to Obristan, which is another territory, and it turns out that that's what Ezek is working for. There's violation of direct orders, so you go into forced labour, destruction of the border wall, you're arrested. The Order of Ezek Star. So that now, ending 14 through to 20 all has elements of where Ezek ends up as a state. This group, how it's going to act with a totalitarian regime. So some of them means that Ezek actually becomes the new Astoska, and other elements is that the thing is put down and stopped, and it all ends in different ways. The funny thing about it is that of the last few endings, if you put down Ezek, or if you allow Ezek to take over, pardon me, it has more of a glorious music in the background.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it doesn't have that, that entry music. Yeah, that. So it doesn't have that. So I think that the good ending, quote unquote good ending, actually can be for the state or against the state. And I found myself acting in a certain way where I wanted to go against what I assumed was this state's purpose. So the aesthetics of the game, of how it's set up, and having the line of people that are constantly there and the pressure to deal with it all the time, I assumed that it was some sort of totalitarianism. Yeah. And that's the way that I think it works. And this is why I think it actually works well with our story today as well. And I'm using that totalitarian, phrase, quote-unquote phrase, in Hannah Arendt's engagement of totalitarianism, where she talks about how a state is not... so let's think about fascism, where you've got the Nazi regime, fascism, and then the Italian regime of fascism, both fascist states during World War II. What happened and what was unique for the German state, Arendt argues, is that totalitarianism actually took over the thoughts and minds of the people who lived in that state. So that this aspect of madness took over every person's life, and they had no reason to question anymore. I couldn't turn off that questioning for me when I was playing this game. Yeah. And I'm constantly there with the internal voice monologue trying to go, well, I want to try and force an end here. How can I actually do that? So I couldn't act the part of the official. And I think to get to those later endings, you still have to refuse entry for good people.
Yeah, well, all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because they all have like a sob story to tell, and there's only a certain amount of fines you can take.
Yeah.
I found that I get a lot of anxiety every time I got a citation as well, because it's it comes up as like a fax coming through, like and every time I'd hear it, because you don't know straight away, so the person starts to walk and then it'll come like with a and I got a bit like anxious with it, and then with the music as well, and the people talk with this weird like and it kind of just, the whole thing made me feel pretty uneasy. And then you have the music, which is both kind of uplifting and also really depressing at the same time. It's like both, and I don't know, I found it, I don't know if I enjoyed the game, but I liked the experience. And one of the reasons, the one person I let through when I knew I'd get the fine was a woman who was a prostitute, and her pimp was coming in the line next, and she said, please, can you not let him through? But he was fine, so he had nothing wrong with his passport, but I didn't let him through.
Oh, didn't you?
No.
Okay.
Because I copped the fine. So that was one.
Is she the one that gives you the card for really early on?
She might, but there's heaps that do that. They give you a card that says like, for good times, come visit Sandy or something later. Yeah. And then you just with the card on the board, and you don't know what to do with it. Yeah. You can't hand it back to anybody.
You can't do it with anything. Yeah.
And did you get the awards? There's also an inspector that comes and tells you that you're doing really well, and you can put the award up behind in the wall.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that. That's cool.
That's because I was on the handicap, so I could get a bit further. I just wanted to play it a bit more. I didn't think I would be able to play it as long, but as I kept going, I think I got better at it. I'm going to try and play a bit more and without the handicap and see how far I can get. But it's a really cool game. I like the whole aesthetic and all these like fabled lands, and I don't know, it was really cool.
Yeah. I like the element of how with the Fabled Lands there is this tension that happens between people, and you can see this tension with these different states and the news reports that are coming through. It's quite quite
and it
cool
also
stuff.
makes a good nod to the bureaucracy of border patrols, that it's always changing. So that in the game, you sort of at first, everyone just has to bring their passport, and you're just not letting any foreign people get in. And then the second time, they have to bring in a ticket to get through, as well as their passports. And then the ticket's no longer valid, and then you have to get through with a visiting permit. And then it just keeps changing each day, and you get the impression, so people come in with the day before, and they'll be like, well, I brought the ticket. And you have to go, well, no, now it's like, it's the whole permit you need this time. And I got the real impression that it was just showing how difficult it can be for trying to get into a country or something when the loopholes just keep changing and you never know each day, or it's not, obviously it's exaggerated, it's not like every day it changes, but it is really complex, the bureaucracy there, and I thought that was really kind of
changing
cool.
whilst you're actually in line.
Yeah,
Some people
right.
say like, no, this was fine.
Exactly.
I have this. I have the ticket.
And then there's that poor guy. So there's one guy that comes like 6 or 7 times. You feel sorry for him because he's always like really patriotic, and he comes being like, I bring you this, and it'll be like this like hand-drawn passport. And you have to be like, no, sorry. And he comes back again. He's like, now I have this now. And
Glory to us, those guys.
Number 1 best country. Like, this was really cute.
Yeah, he was cool. I liked that guy.
So do we want to rate it out of 10 out of 10 passports?
10 out of 10. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, there's not much I can fault with the game. I'm not very good at it. But it's not, I don't think that that's a measure of its greatness.
What, you're just not evil enough?
I'm not evil. No, I'm not. I just can't do that. And yeah, I think that I don't agree with Hex in this regard. I don't think it's boring. I think the monotony actually unlocks a lot of elements to it, and that's the whole point. As you
Yeah,
said.
I don't know how you can find it boring when I was just worried about all the different rules in my head, like
Yeah.
just remembering it.
Yeah, it's stressful, like
Yeah, it really
flicking
is.
through the rules and then
it's like,
going,
hang
oh,
on, how
shit,
many
okay,
people
yeah.
can? Oh yeah, is it the looking at the issue? Or do I look at the gender? Do I look at the permit? Do the dates match?
And then the rule of the day, you might not.
Exactly.
So these countries' citizens can't get through because they've got a rule that day, which is completely arbitrary, but that's just what happens. I think it's really good. You should go first though. So
Okay.
I did this one.
I really liked it. I just found the mechanism of like the table where you stamp sometimes a little bit difficult. So just in the terms of the red, there's like a button you press that measures discrepancies between 2 different things. You know how you can do that?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called.
The
Radar,
investigate.
and you can do certain things, but other things you can't. Like, you know, so you could maybe click on a picture and compare it, and it would work, and other times it wouldn't. I just found like that mechanism a little bit difficult, but maybe with more practice I would have got better at it. So I think I'd give it. I mean, I've got nothing to really compare it to. But because I haven't played a game like this before. But I'm gonna give it, just because I think it's quite clever in the comments it's making about society and stuff. I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10.
Okay. 8 out of 10 passports. Yeah, I agree. 8 out of 10 is fitting. I think it is very good in that regard. The going back feature, so once you've gone through a couple of days and then you can then replay from a certain date, there's an issue there because, you know, your past decisions may not be how you make future decisions. So
then you just go back to day 1.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. But there is a lot of branches there.
Yeah.
And it affects the overarching storyline. So I don't really know. There's no way to actually get around that. But that's the only thing I can really.
Yeah, if you want to play it, I think it's on half price now in Steam.
Yeah.
For $7. So
Something like that.
Something like that. So if you want to play it, or you can just look at some tutorials or something online. I'm sure there's heaps there, but it is a fun game and it's cool. Is it independent?
It is an independent
designer.
Yeah,
that's cool. So support an independent designer, and I think it was a good game.
It is.
Cool.
It's good.
All right, and so do you want to tell everyone what we're going to do next week?
Sure. What are we going to do next week? Well, we're going to read Axolotl by Giulio Cortázar.
Yeah, and it's very short. It's not as long as Shtetl Days.
No, it is not as long. So I thought short story. I'm like, oh yeah, it's easy. Yeah, short story. Sure, Tara, I'll do it. And then like 33 pages. Oh,
yeah.
God, I know that's a short story, but yeah, this is.
This is more like an excerpt.
That's a story.
It's very short. It's like 4 paragraphs.
Still a story, yeah. So in the background, if people need to read more, they could also read Iron Thou by Martin Buber, which is
a much longer read.
Yeah, it's a few hundred pages.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a fair bit about philosophy next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking at the face of the other, that's going to be the overarching theme.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, Tara sent me a link of a guy which has done something very interesting.
Yeah, what's his name?
So his name's Terry A. Davis.
I'm sure other people probably already heard about this because I think it started happening a long time ago, but I think I saw it like a Reddit making reference to it, and when I watched, Ben sent me a link to a documentary, and we watched it on YouTube about this guy who creates, and I'm not really up with the computer lingo, and I don't fully understand what exactly it is, but he's created this cool program basically to talk to God. What's not a program?
An OS. So
OS.
So an operating system is like Windows or the Mac equivalents of Mojo or whatever. This is a full functioning operating system which acts as if it has a GUI, so it's a graphical user interface, but it also has an element of programming in the front end of it. So it's
and it's all 8-bit.
Well,
6-bit?
It's
small bit. I don't know.
It looks 8-bit.
Yeah.
But it requires a 64-bit processing system.
It looks like someone just had Paint open and created all these weird graphics.
It does. It looks very late 80s.
Yeah.
So this is prior to Windows 95. It's prior even really to Windows 3.11.
Yeah. Because what year was it that he started?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So he did start it really, really early on, and initially released in 2005 though. So this is quite late for its development. But he was developing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Its final release was 2017.
Yeah.
And it's called Temple OS.
Yeah, so definitely we're going to put a link to the video we watched, but he's a really interesting guy, and we talk a little bit about mental illness. I think was a major component to affected his life, and I found that when I was watching the documentary, I just felt really sorry for him. And he was also sometimes a bit of an arsehole. He was quite racist as well. So he's a problematic guy, but I thought his idea was to talk to God, and he creates little hymns, and anyway, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, no, that's going to be good. The other thing that I will link everyone to in the show notes is the short video that we watched.
For Papers, Please. That was so cool.
So
they made a live action little video.
Yeah. So it's also called Papers, Please, but it's a very short video, independent made, which is very cool. Very stressed out guy on a border who looks at a photo of his family and sighs.
It's very well made, very well done.
It is, yeah, it's quite cool. We'll link you to all of that. In the meantime, anything else?
No. We're going to send the links of you've already can see the links of what we spoke to today, but we're going to also send links of what we're going to chat about next week.
Yep. You should like our Facebook page. Yes, which is...
Warped.
Warp Zone Podcast.
Podcast,
so
that's right.
If you look up Warp Zone, it will find our Facebook page.
There's also something called Warp Zone, and not to be confused with Warp Zone.
Yeah, and there's also the Warp Zone.
All right.
So there's lots of warp zone, but this is Warped Zone. So it's someone has taken that username, which means someone has personally, like as a Facebook person, has Warped Zone. So we have Warped Zone
with
podcast.
an ED at the end.
Yeah, warped.
Yeah. But we love getting the feedback. So please, if you have anything, comments about maybe you've played the game and you can tell us what you thought of Papers, Please.
Yes.
Or you want to give Shtetl Days a go and tell us what you think of it. That'd be awesome.
If we're wrong about
if we offended you.
If we offended you.
Send all your emails to Ben if you've got any complaints.
No, you can tweet us. So I'm on Twitter, which is at Ben, B-E-N-N, Banasik, B-A-N-A-S-I-K.
Also on Twitter recently at Tara Blue Moon.
Tara Blue Moon is on Twitter. She liked my tweet. She retweeted my tweet.
I think so, yeah. Anyways, we won't. I think we've done enough. We will chat to you guys next week.
Okay.
Bye.
See you. Bye.